Good morning and welcome back to day 2 of AI and Intelligent Automation Live APAC. For those of you joining us for the first time, my name is Sally Fletcher and I'm the Head of Online Events for IQPC and the producer for this conference. If you just joined us, welcome. Be sure to check out our virtual exhibition hall to speak to our partners and download free white papers, reports, which you can take home in your swag bag. So yesterday we had some really cool presentations looking at both the future of AI, but also looking at very practical insight into how to apply robotics, intelligent automation, and so on. Specifically, we looked at a balance of intelligence, machine and human for the workplace with Google, elevating humans by automating intelligently with EY. And we also focused on shifting from AI to the next layer of value. And finally, with automation anywhere, leveraging AI, machine learning and RPA to shine light on dark data. Today we have an equally exciting lineup for you, which includes robotics in finance and accounting with Blackline at 11, industrializing and tracking your RPA program through the RPA Balance Scorecard. So something quite specific and very valuable for you to look at, and that's with EdgeVerve. And finally, embracing intelligent automation, a step change towards smarter operations with Hexware. First up though, I'm really delighted that we're going to be looking into future trends, looking at future trends in AI, what to watch for as the future of workplace ethics and machines massively converge. Our first speaker today is DeLisa Coleman. She's a Digi-Cultural trend analyst and contributor for Forbes. Just a little bit about Lauren. She's an author, a speaker, a consultant in this space. She's an expert at deciphering and forecasting power trends and public sentiment with the intersection of popular culture and emerging tech of AI, VR and blockchain, which we've just been talking about, and the impact of such technologies on business and governance. She also helps brands and politicos create messaging that better resonates with today's tech-savvy pop culture millennials consumer by providing initiative communication strategies. I thought innovative, not initiative. Sorry, early for me. Remember to post your questions to Lauren in the Q&A box. Yesterday we had some great questions and some great dialogue, and I really want to continue that today and make this session interactive. So don't forget to post your questions for Lauren, and we'll get those answered at the end of the session. So now I'm going to hand over to Lauren to talk to us about the future of AI in the workplace.
Thank you so much, Sally. I am very excited to join everybody virtually. I hope that everybody has a great conference, and I'm very glad that I can kick it off today. So as Sally said, let's get started. Of course, you can see from my first slide, again, this is entitled Future Trends in AI, what to watch for as the future workplace ethics and machines massively converge. And so what I'm hoping today is that I am a good balance to maybe some of the technology related talks that you're going to have, because as we all know, it's key to be able to have a great understanding of the intersection of culture, cultural trends, and technology, and how that obviously impacts business. So let's get started, because I have a lot to cover, but I also want to make certain that I certainly leave enough time for questions. So here we go. So as Sally said, sorry about that. My title is Digi-Cultural Trend Analyst, and essentially that means that I am looking at the convergence of popular culture and emerging technology and the impact of that on business and politics. Again, this is looking at trends and sentiment within culture overall and how it intersects with emerging tech behavior, specifically for me, looking at AI, robots, VR to a certain extent, and certainly blockchain. Looking at sentiment, how people are feeling about certain technologies, what's coming up next, and more. This is incredibly key as we are all moving more toward greater business decisions, being able to make those decisions in a way that actually reduce spend and be able to really connect with those who we are targeting, whether it's B2B or D2C. This type of cultural intelligence is absolutely key. So just a little bit of background on how I came to this so that you understand today where these insights are coming from. So I started my career actually after graduating from Columbia University here in New York City in the US. I worked in production for several years, as I said, at MTV before starting my own digital branding company called Punch Media Group. At the height of my business, I had offices in New York, Los Angeles, and Paris, and lived between the two continents. Over that 10-year stretch, we had clients, everybody from Jay-Z to Universal Music Group to Microsoft to TBS and more. The through line was always 18 to 24, 34, and being able to help a number of these major corporations make millions of dollars, being able to reach their target audience better with deeper understanding. But like most things, of course, it runs its course, and at a certain point, I mean, I didn't have anything else to prove to anyone else. After working with, as I mentioned, major corporations. And I just became much more interested in looking at larger trends in society and how all that was going to impact business going forward. So I decided to really be able to drill down and look more at what I just had always been innately good at, which is seeing trends further out, being able to understand how people would intersect with them, but particularly with more and more technology that was coming up. So I started doing informal research, of course, once my staff all found positions, informal research, which turned into formal research, which eventually turned into my first book, which I've since updated, looking again at this specific wheelhouse. And lo and behold, when I self-published it on Amazon, it was selected as one of Amazon's best new media studies. But I always kind of joke, it's like, when you watch the Academy Awards and a documentary receives an Oscar, it has a lot of prestige, but maybe not a ton of sales, right? So it was a little bit that case here because I didn't have, money at the time to market and all that. So this was all very new and just took off in a wonderful way. What it did do, however, was put me onto the radars of some major media companies so that I could be able to carry this forward. So working with Forbes today as a contracted contributor, MSNBC as a contributor, and Cheddar for those outside of the country who may not know, which is, I guess, kind of like likened to a CNBC for millennials. So I'm looking again at this specific wheelhouse, at this intersection. A lot of the research that I do with my new team today centers around ethnographic study, being able to be right out in the field, in the market, as it were, boots on the ground, being able to understand target audiences, not remote phone calls, surveys, and these other types of platforms. Why? Because emerging technology simply moves far too quickly for much of that information to be accurate by the time it moves into a report or white paper or more. We work very closely with various universities like NYU and others to really be able to pioneer different studies. And it's an area that I'm just fascinated by, that's always changing, that I love. And we're able to work with a number of different individuals, both in the public and private space, with a lot of this research. So what we're doing, of course, which is why I kind of selected this image, is really being able to help those in either the public or private sector be able to understand more of where these trends are going, how to be able to fit these puzzle pieces together as they work on certainly day-to-day projects. So it's all of this background and experience and insights that I'm bringing to you now in this presentation that is really, of the absolute moment. Especially, I think, with artificial intelligence, this area is very, very controversial, exciting, and really at times overwhelming. Why? Because this, unlike nearly any other technology that we're looking at today, is really the only one where we are trying to almost replicate ourselves, both in the best sense and in the worst sense. And so for that reason, and because of the power around it, there is so much being looked at in this space right now, and just so many different areas that one has to be able to track this in order to be able to create success and to lessen any additional expenditures going forward. So let's kind of get into what I am seeing with my team as kind of the top 3 areas to watch as it pertains to artificial intelligence, where things are going to go, so that you can better plan as either one who's just maybe watching on the periphery of artificial intelligence, or maybe whether you are charged with being able to drive that initiative internally. Maybe you're already entrenched in this and trying to just certainly make certain that you have more kind of tools and resources at your disposal so that you can be as successful as possible. So the first area that I want to address is certainly diversity. And so when we say this word, particularly in the United States today, this can either mean, kind of code for people of color, or including, women, which certainly it does mean that. But in this sense, today, I want to talk with you about diversity in the largest sense of the word, because when it comes to artificial intelligence, this is really absolutely crucial from a lot of the study that I've been doing on this, and a lot of those with whom I've been interviewing, whether it's for reports or my articles with Forbes and more. So as I said, we're looking at potential, gender, ethnicity, expertise, and sensibilities. Let me kind of drill down a little bit into this for you. By the way, just a quick note, you'll notice that my slides are very text light, right, and image light. Typically, we retain information better if we aren't reading a ton of it as it's being spoken across the screen. You can also take notes more at your pace than trying to feverishly write down everything that is on the screen for fear that I'm going to move past the screen before you get a chance. So, kind of sit back and sink in to this discussion, because the format is not that. Certainly I will have available for you, though, in addition to this download, everything that I am essentially saying in structured sentences and more, so that you can go back through it. But right now is really a time for me to be able to just simply share more with you, and I'm hoping that you enjoy this format. So, to be able to kind of jump into a few of these, first of all, gender, and this is really kind of top of mind for me at the moment, because I recently did a piece for Forbes looking at the intersection of gender bias and voice related AI, right? So Siri, et cetera, Alexa, and more. This area is just really, really fascinating, because if you look at it, and certainly everybody listening today is more than aware of these various devices. But as we all know, when they first started or first introduced to the market, the voice was female. There was already the beginnings bubbling up of whatever you want to call this, feminism 2.0, time's up and more. But those who were creating these projects were very far removed from that, right? Fast forward to today, and the volume is growing on women, no matter what area they are in business, and there are a lot of sensitivities around this. So what has happened? Companies have had to go back now and reconfigure, redevelop for the user to be able to select voice or not, right? Some devices have enabled themselves to be able to offer that. Others, such as Alexa, are not just yet. This means that there is a loss of time within the company when you need to go back, and in particular, not a loss, but additional expenditures, because it was not created in a particular way that fits a larger cultural narrative where AI directly smashes up against in the first place. This is really fascinating because in my piece in Forbes, and if you're interested, you can certainly just Google my name at Forbes, and there's a full archive. We can read more about the psychologists I interviewed and more around this. But it's really fascinating how those who are entering more of the AI voice-related space now are able to move more nimbly, save more money because they've learned from others in the past. I had the opportunity, for example, to speak to the head of technology at Capital One. And I do realize I'm speaking to an international audience, so I'm not certain Capital One is understood as, bank, which, of course, among many things, offers a credit card, but just, liken it to HSBC more if you aren't familiar directly with Capital One. And so when they recently rolled out their chatbot to be able to help their customers with their finances, they made certain that the user could select gender from the start, right? So this saved time and money. They made certain that the team was balanced and diverse in terms of gender and more. And so this is something that all companies are going to need to consider further going out, not just about voice and AI, but other elements that may touch, both obviously genders in terms of consumers and more, whether it's B2B sales, D2C coming out to market. Having a team that is diverse to be able to bring you various perspectives is so vital that one cannot even put some type of dollar amount on it, right? So the example I'm giving you now is more about time-related scenarios in terms of competition and more. But it can take a very sinister turn as well if you do not have a diverse team in terms of more of these last 2 points here that I have, which is about expertise and sensibilities. I had the opportunity to be invited to an AI summit in Paris just about a month ago. This was right after I attended the Cannes Lion Festival, which I just, so happy to just basically come fresh off of because I knew a lot of these elements I couldn't wait to include in my presentation so that, for those who might not have been able to attend, you have this really, really helpful insights and more. So the summit was very intimate, very interesting, bringing together a couple of key academics in this space. One in particular is named, is Professor Gérard Berry, who is a professor at the Collège de France. He is a director of research at an organization called INRIA. He is just an amazing mind who is behind a lot of the technology that even enables the Airbus, airplanes to fly and more. He shared an amazing example about the importance truly of diversity in teams. Going forward, that will become, I think, paramount to any and everybody in AI. I don't care what sector you're in. So as we know right now, most definitely anything dealing with healthcare, whether it's a hearing aid, pacemaker, et cetera, which I'm about to discuss, is essentially technology, right? These are now run by software. So recently there was a company that wanted to do a study around creating a new type of pacemaker. They brought on engineers who had medical backgrounds quite naturally. They were able to create something which they were very proud of. It worked efficiently. It was state of the art. Afterwards, the company decided, you know what? Actually, let's try and bring in security, AI experts, because they may have a few things to share with us. And they did. There were major holes within the software that was being utilized for this pacemaker. And so Professor Berry goes on to say that just as an experiment to see if it could be done, what would happen if you utilized AI from this point of view to burrow into the holes to see if it could actually do something sinister, which it did, over time be able to actually kill the user as opposed to help it with blood flow. And they found out that, yes, this was absolutely something that could be done, and they were able to do it easily. Why? Because the team was not diverse, right? The ones on the brilliant minds on the original team was surely only thinking about blood flow, how does this work, what's the efficiency, etc., never guarding against something that is sinister. Unfortunately, today in our society, you have to have all of these bases covered, especially with a very, shall we say, delicate area of technology like artificial intelligence. This will become, I know, even more and more of a sticking point, if you will, for companies that are experimenting and testing various waters around artificial intelligence, particularly in the healthcare and wellness space, but overall, right? So the least case scenario may be loss of dollars, loss of time, internal manpower. The worst is, just a complete moral disaster, which involves, class action suits and much more, which can easily be avoided if one has the largest possible diverse team that can be actually created. I spoke as well to a variety of different people involved in AI, again, as I mentioned, at the Cannes Lion Festival. And another scenario which kept coming up in terms of diversity was this fact that we need to have more, or certainly those who are hiring need to be very much aware of bringing on those with doctorates in artificial intelligence, which unfortunately there are not that many in the world, but certainly being able to have them on board. A lot of what has been happening is that because much of AI is open source, that companies are thinking that it's just a simple matter of bringing on those who are well versed in technology. The trend is coming along where it is about very much specifics and more. This will tie into the third trend that I will be talking about going forward, but it's incredibly key to keep in mind, and as a takeaway from this talk, diversity in your teams, most definitely. The next trend that I want to talk about, which is actually, just as much of a hot button, if not more, is ethics around artificial intelligence. Anytime that we are dealing with emerging tech space, of course, there are questions around standards and more. This, because of the power of it, as we all know, is going to become one of the largest narratives, I believe, of our lifetimes, because we actually don't know everything that it can do just yet. So let me share a bit with you more, some of the research that I've found around this. So again, from the recent AI summit that I had the chance to attend in Paris, but others, more and more, there's just discussion about using artificial intelligence primarily for a specific case only, right? So what do I mean by that? Right now, there are large sweeping solutions that AI is being programmed for, and many who are very much experts in the space are calling for great caution in this because of the more amoeba-like, if you will, kind of opportunities that AI can represent. Let me tell you a little bit about a conversation that I had recently with a true AI pioneer. His name is Stuart Russell. He is a professor of computer science at UC Berkeley. He's also the founder of the Center for Human Compatible AI, and he's just an amazing mind on this. This man is actually calling for a completely new way, even though AI, of course, is in and of itself relatively new, at least on this larger scale. A new way of being able to consider ethics and standards that will certainly come up in the near future and distant future. He is very much adamant about really being able to have specific domain-only solutions for which one programs AI, but even more so about that. More so than that, I should say, is about being able to, and I know this may sound, crazy for some, at least it did to me initially, maybe not for others, but being able to create ethics and standards around just simply turning the machine off. This is going to become a huge talking point around AI. Why? Because as many may know, listening to this, the machine knows, first of all, to be able to carry out or create any solution for which it has been programmed, it needs to first stay on. Should things become more, shall we say, from a human point of view, sinister, the machine will not know this and will still keep going on. I don't know how many of you may be familiar with iRobot with Will Smith a few years ago. Imagine that in real life, maybe not from robots, or could be robots, right? Machines that keep going ahead. Professor Russell talks about this in very, very stern and very compelling terms about just some of the elements that he's seen around this and why he's championing so much of a discussion around being able to program in business around this particular, I guess, caveat, which is satisfaction of human preference. And the machine should not know what that preference is. Therefore, if the preference becomes that this has moved to a certain level where this is no longer appropriate, then the human preference now is to be able to turn this machine off or to stop the program. This is key, right? Professor Russell goes on to talk about how even with self-driving cars, and I could not believe this when I first heard it, no self-driving cars, no programs, apparently, at least according to his research and his teams, which is pretty thorough, are actually programmed right now first to know that humans prefer the preference of staying alive, right? Sounds crazy, but we know this as humans. As machines, we do not. We have this idea, maybe in a way, that morals and ethics, which have taken us centuries, if not millennia, to be able to kind of polish and in no way are perfected, machines don't have this type of capability, right? So it's very, very key, and this is an opportunity and a major area to watch for trends around this area, because certainly more and more in terms of policymakers, governments, etc., are going to intersect with this area. And if you are looking at this from a business point of view, more than likely, regulation is going to impact either your spend around this, what strategy was and is. I mean, it just can be massively important to the future of whatever it is that you might be looking to carry out as a particular internal project or overall as an AI offering. So watching this area of ethics, standards, trends is going to be very key. I know right now I'm being even asked on Capitol Hill to be able to include research and more around some of the commissions that particular Congress members are looking at around AI. This will be a very, very huge area to watch and absolutely imperative. I really can't say enough about this in terms of being able to certainly just forecast and to do due diligence in terms of being able to create projects which are successful and also that which benefits society rather than something which becomes problematic. I don't know how many of you are familiar with David Benningson, who is a very brilliant mind around AI, who is based out of the UK, who has a company, who's a founder of Signal, which just raised a significant amount for its next round of funding. I had the opportunity to do a lot of interviews with him while I was in Cannes, and he just made a very, very key point, which I want you to be able to kind of keep in mind, is that he feels we are underestimating the long term for AI and overestimating that of short term. So what does that mean? That everybody's going to be replaced by AI and there will be no work and all of that. That's overestimating the short term. And I will actually get into that as I talk about my third and final trend in terms of sectors in a few moments. But in terms of long term, a lot of what we are still going to be discovering around AI, particularly as it intersects with business, is going to be that which is not really quite considered enough, and it will be everybody's responsibility to work together to be able to create something in an area, in a sector of technology which is as responsible as possible. But yes, there are major academic minds around this, policymaking minds around this, and those who are maybe more leading in the AI space, that this trend is going to be absolutely huge because of, simply what can go wrong. So, as I mentioned, my third and final top trend to watch, it's hopefully not as doom and gloom, but I want to make certain that I'm able to give you really a full picture here, right? So the third one is about sectors. Maybe there are those certainly on the webinar who are looking to get into AI, or maybe working with companies that have various divisions and wanting to know, maybe where to put initial energies, efforts, and more. From a lot of the research that I've done, here is what I have found to be, with my team, some of the key sectors of where AI will be applied and how. So first, around caregiving, and we already touched on healthcare a little bit, more on the terrifying side, but of course there's so much good that can be done as well with artificial intelligence. But on the caregiving side, very fascinating stats around this, particularly in the US. For example, over the next 30 years, the number of caregivers are going to decrease as those who are aging increases. And I think that we could maybe apply this, globally, that of course everybody, at least in, more developed countries, are living longer thanks to, drug inventions and more, but certainly needing care at certain points. AI and robotics is going to play a huge, huge part in this. I've already had the opportunity to really investigate companies that are doing amazing things with AI and robotics for rehabilitation for stroke victims. We all know as well that AI-powered robots are becoming more and more what shall we say, developed to be able to be companions of sorts, if you will, for the aging. This will be a key area to watch. Those who might have work within subsectors of this that would speak back to this area are going to most certainly have more and more opportunities. This is an area to certainly watch and one for which to prepare. Going back to what I was saying just on the other slide about David saying that we certainly tend to overestimate the short term. This is where we talk about the automation of high volume processes. So what do I mean by that? More such as the monotonous or pattern work of those who may be junior attorneys at law firms, those dealing with the monotonous side of banking and more. Much of that will begin to go away and quickly. And so certainly any of the kind of occupations that are dealing with automation in any type of way, because AI can do this faster in a more accurate way and more, this is going to disappear, enabling those to either be able to utilize that time which was once allocated for that into other areas, or to be able to move hopefully into other areas entirely, right? But anything that is dealing with patterns, gathering, those types of areas is definitely a sector to watch. Which is somewhat of a segue into finance. Certainly artificial intelligence with dealing with accurate models. Oh my gosh, reducing operating risks, credit scoring, anything around fraud detection will be huge for AI, because it just is something which is really certainly much more efficient than anything that we have today. Many are saying that it will change the face of banking overall. So definitely a sector and a larger trend to watch. And then finally, I would also say, just because so much of this is still so fresh in my mind from the Cannes Lion Festival, advertising as it intersects with artificial intelligence, again, going back to some of the voice-related devices, but even more so, anything where AI can help with personalization, and that intersecting with brands is going to be huge, right? Because if I can be able to tailor something more toward exactly what you are looking for, and I don't just mean, a cookie or something. This is really being able to get down into the nitty-gritty of one's likes and dislikes in a way that we've never seen an algorithm to do. That will be incredibly valuable for the advertiser, hopefully for the consumer. We don't, know just yet, but this will be an area that will be huge. This is a trend where many in the advertising space, whether it be on the agency side or certainly brands, are feverishly trying to work with companies to certainly figure this out, what solutions are and what's going to be next. So these are some of my top picks for you for sectors in terms of the trends to be able to watch. So I want to just kind of take this moment now to review a bit just quickly before we get into any questions. These are my takeaways for you. So let's just, review quickly by bullet points. I can't say enough about the trend of having diverse teams becoming that which is absolutely huge. Certainly those which reflect the larger cultural narrative as I have here. But in addition to that, of course, expertise, right, is going to become more and more critical. This will intersect with the workplace, no doubt, because many more and different types of hires will have to happen for companies who want to be successful in this space, hands down. The next takeaway, of course, are trends around ethics. We truly know that this will make or break one's success in the AI space because certainly policy, regulation, and more around this is going to become key. And might I even add, creating internal ethics are going to also become a larger trend, even as, just case studies are being worked upon. This is really very critical. Trends to watch in terms of sectors, caregiving and finance are really key for me, for those that I would say to certainly watch, to become a part of if you can, and to be able to invest within. Now, just kind of a quick kind of addition here. As we're looking at all of this, I think it's just very key to really understand that this is something that you're either grappling with already internally, or you're looking to be able to decide what is going to be the next strategy or the route in terms of artificial intelligence internally at your corporation and more. Know that this is very, very challenging stuff, right? That this is going to take time, that there are a variety of, as we say, moving parts around this, and to maybe consider really full-on innovation departments within the company so that you can do a lot of case study around this. For those that I've been tracking who've done this, it's been incredibly helpful and saved a lot of money, right? Because what you can do is be able to do proof of concept and then be able to weave in the various shareholders that you might need to within the company, and then have the evidence to be able to then move on, to the very next level. Of course, and finally, the consideration around build versus buy will also be very key as you look at, these various takeaways that you're going to be able to focus on. Is this all done, internally? Are there companies, third parties that we can trust, that we can work with, that can help us scale more quickly, that can bring a lot of this expertise to us, particularly when you're talking about ethics and more. If you were, for example, an advertising agency, yes, these are things where it's definitely going to be a quote-unquote team effort, and those who do that successfully will be those who are out front. So those are just the takeaways, as I said, that I'd love to be able to leave you with. I'm certainly hoping that this has been helpful for you. As I said, myself and my team at my agency Link, we do this type of research and forecast on a variety of different levels. certainly I'm happy to offer you my trend report that we do monthly. You can sign up. It's absolutely free. Happy as well to send you my ebook too, if that is of interest to you. And what I can do as well is leave up various contact information. I'm usually, chained to some screen or another. So I do have the opportunity to be able to respond. If you'd like to contact me in any way, here are a number of ways. And I guess I'm ready to turn it over to Sally to see, if we have any questions and more. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much. And I hope that this was of help to everybody listening today.
Thank you so much, Lauren. That was excellent. It's really awesome to get such a great kind of first session, which really is looking at the trends and what we can expect from AI. So to the audience, write your questions into Lauren on the Q&A screen, and we'll get to answering as many as possible. The first one, Lauren, that's come in is a lot of the companies, this has been talked about, a lot of people have been asking this question kind of over the course of the event. Someone asked it to you. When people are implementing AI within their enterprise, what kind of skills and talent should they look for when trying to kind of start an AI project in their company?
Well, I think that is a great question, and I can see why that would come up, because that's everybody's question, right? Who is really capable to lead this? And I think, as I mentioned in terms of diversity back on one of the earlier slides, many those who are out front on this are saying that one of the key criteria should be certainly those which have a doctorate around some form of AI as a lead maybe on this, or certainly a key part of the team. That it really seems to be first and foremost. I know that so much around AI has been done in terms of study, right? Academic study alone, out of certain regions of the world. And it's really key, I think, with this particular technology to think a little bit old school, if you will, and go the academic route, because you just can't simply see far enough out on these types of things, right? When I have the opportunity to sit with, some of these professors, it is, it's mind-boggling. How can, no self-driving car program be have any inclusion that, first of all, humans like to be alive, right? That's the priority right there, right? If that needs to come out of an academic mind, then yes, so be it. Let's make certain that we either have greater training around that, or that there is some kind of partnership around or with an academic institution. But I would say I agree with those who have interviewed around this. Yes, doctorates, PhDs are a great thing to start the ball rolling, and then be able to kind of create a team based on some of their I guess, suggestions.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Another question that comes in is actually about something you mentioned towards the end, about innovation departments.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us more about that? I mean, what do innovation departments look at? Who leads them in the company? What have you seen about these departments?
What I've really been most impressed with, and I actually can liken this a little bit to MasterCard. I feel that, if there's a company that is multinational like that, which touches, I think, is it 1.75 billion people per day, if they can do this, really, I think that any company can do this. I'm just so impressed by having gone to what is essentially, I wouldn't maybe call it an innovation department, but for all intents and purposes, that is what it is. It's a smaller office in a nondescript building, downtown Manhattan. Really, Sally, it functions almost as like a startup environment within the MasterCard empire, right? Because MasterCard does consider itself, and I've had the opportunity to speak to its CMO, Rajesh, several times for interviews. He's a brilliant mind. They consider themselves to be a technology company, right? So they are charged with staying on top of whatever technology is coming out first, and as that will intersect with payments, whether it's, Pepper running around this office and more, they are on top of it. But the environment is that which is more like a startup The offices are open. There are engineers there. There's a lot of sharing. There's a barista even, you know. So innovation departments, I think, are key when a company is trying to figure this space out, as everybody is. And to be able to create that environment which kind of says experimentation and is able to kind of know that there will be some quote-unquote failures or not. And to be able to set that up in almost a spirit of a startup inside of an established company. And I've seen that work really well. I've seen that incredibly done in an impressive way with Samsung too. Oh my gosh, they have a full-on just a company where everything, like if you go in there, you have to sign a million papers. You can't even look at the prototypes and all that. But the engineering minds that are running this are absolutely brilliant. And they're committed to being able to create these various devices and more to show whether they can work or not. Again, as I mentioned, proof of concept, and then get buy-in. Do all of them get buy-in? Should they all get buy-in? No. And I asked the head of this particular division in California a couple of months ago, you know, well, what happens when you fall in love with something that you've created and that's it? You know what he said to me? It builds muscle for the next one that we will bring to market. And that's the attitude that I think that companies have to have, large or small. And that is, I think, the spirit of what an innovation department would look like, particularly with, you know, AI, most definitely.
Great, yeah. I mean, I think that kind of element of thinking differently that comes with having that kind of almost physical environment of kind of, you know, the trendy startup must kind of provide a lot of innovation to the company and a lot of kind of progress in what they're doing.
Absolutely. Exchange is key, I think, because no one has all the answers yet, right? So you have to have that kind of environment.
Yeah, absolutely. The third and final question that we'll go through today is about whether to buy or build. So a lot of the people that are listening in today are looking at, you know, implementing AI in their own organization. And, you know, there's so many different AI products in the market, you know, a lot of buzz, a lot of loud noise. Really kind of how do we look at whether to choose to buy or build is a question that's come through.
And I could definitely see how that could come up, because that's key. I don't care whether you're a startup or, you know, a multinational company. I personally am on team build, I guess, or no, team buy, because building, one, it takes time. Right, so especially if you're looking to scale or something, unless your company really has the wherewithal, being on kind of team build means that you are absolutely certain that you have the expertise, the budget, and more. And quite frankly, I don't know how many companies do, unless it may be a MasterCard or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm on team buy, but with a caveat of strong vetting, right? So that you want to see a company that has some type of track record of working with other companies in this particular capacity. Of course, this is challenging because we're not talking about something that's, 100 years old, and so we can see, kind of a long list of clients, but it's really more about how they've helped that client solve problems, what has been the outcome, how did they measure that, how long did it take, being able to know what questions to ask and how. And this is really where maybe I think, this trend of collaboration is so appropriate. So you may have internally, your PhD as the lead, who then interfaces with the company that you are buying from, right? Or you might have a small build inside, but most of it's buy, right? That's where it seems to be like the trend is kind of going, so that you kind of hedge your bets. This, I think, is going to be, certainly key, because hopefully those who are in the space which are providing those products for purchase are, quite frankly, taking the bumps and the bruises all the time, right? So they have that really expertise and know-how, which you won't have internally by just simply working to build every day. I think in this case, with AI, maybe with, just blockchain or something like this, whatever, but with AI, I really believe that this is about, expertise to be able to guard against as well as create AI for good at the same time. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And what you said about metrics is really important. Like, for the people in the AI IA network, we get a lot of questions about how do I prove this ROI? How do I report back to my stakeholders? What will be the ROI? What will be the hard benefits for AI implementation in the next 6, 12 months and so on?
Absolutely. Being able to do that with a very capable, buy partner, if you will, that I think is really critical, right? Because, you want to be able to report back to the CEO or whatever, that yes, we hit these benchmarks and it was right, or it wasn't, but here's why, and we know how to correct it. That trend is going to be, very key for sure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lauren. That's all we have time for today.
Okay.
So thank you so much. And of course, guys, this session is available to watch on demand. So you can go back in, and anything you missed, pass to your colleagues, of course. We will be back here for our next session at, let me just make sure I give you the right time, 11 o'clock Singapore time. We're looking at something a bit more specific, robotics in finance and accounting, separating the fact from the fiction. And we're going to be talking about how you can improve your productivity by 50% and how you can automate your finance and accounting process by almost 80%. So something really to watch. So yes, thank you again to Lauren, and I will see you all back here at 11.
You're welcome. Bye. Enjoy.